All right, in this video I wanted to discuss the Berklee Film, TV, and Video Game Scoring Summer Program. Now, I participated in this program 3 years ago in 2022, and that was their inaugural session, their very first time running the program, and so I just thought I would talk a little bit about my experience with the program, talk about some of the details that they don't go into on this page, and give you sort of my recommendation on if this program is for you. Now, ultimately, that's, your decision, but to kind of help you decide maybe if this is worth pursuing. So, this program is held in Los Angeles. These dates are pretty consistent year to year. Mine 3 years ago was about around these dates, so they're pretty consistent. The tuition, as far as I'm aware, has actually gone down a little bit. I remember when I did it, it was closer to $2,600. So it's gone down a little bit, it seems. And some of this information is not available yet, so you can check back in a few months before the program begins. So, you have to submit registration by June 1st and make your tuition payment by June 1st as well. Now, I'm just scrolling down the page in order of the headings, so I'm just going to talk about these, and then after I go through this whole page, then I can go back and talk about some of the things, some more details. So the curriculum, you'll participate in core writing classes, visiting artist lectures from high-profile Hollywood composers, and hands-on technology sessions. By the end of the program, you will have a greater understanding of these things. Now, as far as I'm aware, they pretty much hit all of these things. Now, this was 3 years ago, and my memory of very specific points within these is sort of starting to fade a little bit. But as far as I remember, they hit pretty much all of these things, and so this is pretty much what you can expect. Now, they did talk about, some things more than others, obviously, but you can sort of expect to have all of these things. Now, the schedule, I'm going to go through the schedule in more detail later on, but this is pretty much what you can expect. The schedule is pretty accurate. And the performance opportunities will be a big screening at the very end of the program, which is great. And everybody's parents come and, you watch the clips, and the original composers of the film or video game are there. And so then they can provide their feedback and whatnot. So that is really, really cool. Now, the requirements. What are the requirements to participate in this program? Ages 14 and over, pretty self-explanatory. English, must have sufficient proficiency in English, don't need to submit any scores. Could be useful to know if you are an international applicant. Now, required materials, let's talk about this. A laptop with a digital audio workstation, that's pretty self-explanatory. Notation software, pretty self-explanatory. Sample libraries, I'm going to go back to that in a second. A pair of professional headphones. This is really, really important that you have a good pair of headphones. Now, I'm not talking about, like a $300 pair of headphones. You do not need that. But again, these suggestions are actually pretty good. I own a pair of AKG K52s that I've had for like 8 years, and they've lasted all that time, and they still work. Not in great physical shape anymore, but they're wonderful. So K52, K24, those are pretty good headphones. Now, any 25 or more key MIDI keyboard with a sufficient cable that you can connect to a laptop. All right, so before I talk about sample libraries, let me just mention, so when I went to this program, I brought with me a 61-key MIDI controller that I actually bought specifically for this program, and I brought like a keyboard stand, and it was in like a big road case, and I checked all of that on the plane, and it was just, I don't recommend doing that. You don't need that. And I bought all that and went through all that hassle because I thought that I would need it, and I wasn't quite sure, will I, have an issue if my MIDI keyboard is any smaller than 61 keys? That is not a problem. In fact, I would encourage you to have a 25 key MIDI controller. 49 is kind of the sweet spot. So if you can find a 49 key controller that you can just put in your checked luggage, then that would be optimal. But 25 can work. I just think 25 is a little bit small. But 49 is again, small enough to put in your checked luggage, and that you don't need an enormous road case and a keyboard stand and all that. It can just fit on the table. Students will study on the campus of the Colburn School. It's in downtown LA. It's actually in a really nice spot right across from the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Now, a bit of an inside scoop about this. They do not mention this on this page. Berklee does not provide housing for this specific program. For other programs, like some of the songwriting programs that they have in Boston and whatnot, they provide housing. This, they don't. So really, really important to mention. And you will need to book your own hotel room for the entire week. Now, I also have a bit of an inside scoop because I stayed at the Omni Hotel and Resort that is right next to the Colburn School. And it was a very expensive hotel and, really kind of high end. But the really convenient part is that it was right next to the Colburn School. And I'm not kidding. It was like 2 minutes away. And so if the program started at 9 a.m. every day, I could just leave at 8:50 and it was not a problem. So if you're looking for a hotel, and you're willing to buy, something that's a little bit fancier, the Omni Hotel and Resort is literally right next to the Colburn School. So very important to mention. So that was great. And they also have like a good restaurant there and whatever. But even better is that it's just literally 2-minute walk. You literally just walk across the square, and they have like a back entrance and exit to the hotel. And so I just walked there, and it's just across this public square. It's a little embarrassing, like carrying my giant road case. It's another reason why I wouldn't recommend it, because you have to like carry back and forth. The Colburn School has no instrument storage. Please keep that in mind. They have no storage. And so if you plan to leave anything at the Colburn School, you run the risk of people stealing it. So just just be aware. Now, sample libraries. I was going to talk about that. Now, they say you need the Berlin Orchestra with Berklee, East-West contact, built-in Logic samples. Now, if you don't have any of this, it's really not a problem. And again, I've got a little bit of an inside scoop because I participated in this program. When I did this, they had some discounts on sample libraries, some pretty considerable discounts, actually. I don't know if that deal still exists anymore, so don't be a little bit careful about kind of trusting me on that, because that was 3 years ago, which is, getting to be a little bit long ago. So I don't know if they're still running that deal, but participants in the program when I was in it could get some pretty nice discounts on the sample libraries. So if you wanted to spend like $300-$400 on sample libraries at the discount that they had, that would usually be worth, like $1,500, then, that's the deal that they had. Again, don't quote me on that. Don't take my word for it, because that deal might not exist anymore, but worth sort of keeping in the back of your mind in case they do have that. Now, the other thing is you can use somebody else's samples on their laptop if they're willing to share. I was willing to share mine, and other people were willing to share theirs. So you can do that. If you have something really specific that you want that somebody else has, you can just ask. You can record it and just bounce a MIDI or audio region to your own machine and throw it on your project. So something kind of important to mention. Sean McMahon is a wonderful director, really, really experienced. And so, he's great. Now, here's a little promotional video. Actually, funnily enough, I think that is me in my workstation right there, because I remember sitting directly across from that guy. So that has got to be me. And I had my Mac OS Monterey wallpaper. Yeah, I think that's That's me and my arms. You just can't really see it, see my face. I'm sure I appear in it in other spots. I actually haven't watched it, so I don't know. All right, so let's talk in detail about this schedule. This is very vague. They don't tell you anything about what this is. Now, if I was, I'm a very curious soul. I want to know, about exactly what this means. So, luckily, I'm here to tell you about what this means in case you want to know. These times are roughly accurate. I mean, probably don't pay that much attention to it because it doesn't even really matter. But just this is rough, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., might not be exactly true, but, these class periods might not be exactly as they're written. But these are, again, pretty accurate. And again, it's like sometimes they move things around. Like sometimes these two are flipped. Sometimes these three things are flipped. But anyway, so film score analysis, we watched some clips, and Patrick Kirst, who I was with, when we scroll back down, you can see Patrick Kirst right there. He is a professor on the film scoring faculty at the University of Southern California. Went to Berklee from Germany, and very accomplished performer as well. Plays a bunch of classical and jazz stuff. So that's what I know about him. You might be working with him. I don't know. That was 3 years ago. I don't know if he still is part of this, but just something to keep in mind. So Patrick showed us a bunch of clips, and he talked about sort of like, what are the elements in the in the clip, and like how does the score relate to the movie, and like what are some like really detailed things about that, like really close listening and close looking. So that was nice. We didn't do that every single day. Sometimes this kind of started off our day, and we just did this for a couple hours. Composition and orchestration. He showed us a bunch of techniques, and we kind of tried them ourselves. We had a little bit of time to work on our own film projects, or film scores, rather. And so sometimes this session wasn't even necessary, but that's pretty much what we did. He just showed us some techniques in Logic Pro, which could apply to a bunch of different digital audio workstations, and then we kind of tried them out, and, I just took a bunch of notes and this is cool, Shift, Command, tilde, or I don't even know, some random keyboard shortcut does this, and you can use it, and it's really cool. And so things like this. And then he talked about, he had a bunch of example projects and showed us all that. You have a nice break for lunch. They have kind of a dining hall sort of thing. It was outdoors, which was kind of interesting. I don't know. Again, that was their first time running the program, so I don't know if any of the dining stuff has changed. But it was decent food. It was not like anything super notable, but it was fine. The guest lectures were really wonderful. Probably the highlight of it, honestly. They had Pinar Toprak come in. They had Harry Gregson Williams come in. They had that there were 5, and I can't remember who the other ones were. But that was really great to have access to that, and usually had another session in the afternoon to work on our own projects. And usually this session wasn't necessary. It happened maybe once where they were like, from 5 to 6, we'll have one extra session in case you want to work a little bit longer, in case you're, in the case of if at 5 o'clock you're still I really want to, finish this, that happened once or twice throughout the week. So this last session isn't always the case, but overall the schedule is pretty accurate to how the program ran, which was nice. Now, I think I forgot to mention exactly how this program is run. So there are 80 students, give or take. At least there were in my iteration of the program. That might be different now, but when I did it, there were about 80 students, and they had us divided into 4 groups of 20. So in each classroom, there were about 20 students, and we were all able to kind of work together. We had little small groups of 4 or 5 students, who were working on a project together. And so it was really nice. And we were able to kind of share. And then obviously at the very end, you share all your group projects at the end of the program. As I talked about at the very end, there's a big film screening in front of all the parents in the program. Now, you may be wondering, this is a music-related program. Can I just go into the program with no knowledge of music? That is a very good question. And I would say, on the whole, yes and no. I think you need to have a little bit of musical foundation. You can't go in and say, I don't know anything. You have to know kind of what a major scale is, and, know how to play major triads on the piano and know, that kind of stuff. Beyond that, you really don't need to know anything else. I happen to be one of the more experienced musicians in our group of 20, and, along with a couple other people. And so I, kind of explained some concepts to people, and so that was nice. They mentioned notation software. I never used it, but there were, probably 10 people, I feel like. Probably about half the class used notation software at some point or the other, because I, walked around the room and I was able to see sort of what they were using to produce all their stuff. So notation software can be helpful, but not strictly necessary, I don't think. Now, that does kind of beg the question, do you need to know how to read music to participate in this program? Not necessarily, but honestly, it was very helpful being able to know how to read. As far as like sight reading, like, I throw this example on the board and you have to play it. I just involved myself in that voluntarily. You don't have to know how to sight read, but there were a couple of students actually who composed part of their score in notation software, and like fully orchestrated it. And then they asked me to play it on the piano. Again, that was voluntary. I'm a really good reader, and so I can do that, and I was able to help them, kind of visualize, this is how this sounds. So sight reading, not necessary, but, I was like, again, one of the probably more experienced musicians in there, so I could read, and I knew a lot of theory, and I was able to help them. Now, theory, again, don't really need to know it. Helpful if you do, but again, really, really not strictly necessary to know any theory. I would just really say he went over in the first day the modes of the major scale, kind of review those. So that is pretty much the extent of this program. Now, as far as a final sort of verdict on if this program is for you, I would say it depending on what exactly you want to learn, and if this is something that you're interested in learning, this can be something that is totally helpful. Now, I felt like I, wanted to do it because I wanted to experience something totally different, and I wasn't totally invested, to be totally honest, in like film score writing, but, and I still haven't really been active in that domain. But if that's something that you really want to go to, this could be a really good first step into that, because you get, sort of exclusive access to a lot of things that, you wouldn't normally. And, you can meet a lot of other people who are also interested in kind of diving into it. Now, Berklee, I should mention, has a film scoring major. So if you want to actually go there for your undergrad, and I don't know if they have a master's degree in film scoring, but I'll have to look into that. But if that's something that you want to pursue even more, Berklee is, they've got some options as far as, like formal education goes. Now, I don't know. My opinions on Berklee are not overall as a school, not entirely positive. But that's for a totally different video. I can talk about the issues with Berklee as a school, but the program was really great, and I felt like they did a very good job, and they were able to use the space that they had available to them very, very well. And again, just mention again, no housing, so you have to figure that out. Obviously, no transportation back and forth from the housing to the program, and don't get a big giant MIDI controller in a road case. So that is pretty much the extent of this video. If you have any questions about this program, you can post them in the comments, or even better yet, you can reach out to the program director or any other Berklee representative for more in-depth answers on your questions. But as far as this video is concerned, I hope it was helpful, and I might do some more videos about other programs, so please keep those on your radar. And that is it for this, so thanks for watching.